And then I finish with a short prayer that asks that, as we gather together for this time, that we are all protected, that we're all nourished, that we practice with some vigor, with some positive energy, and recognizing that when we come together, that sometimes it can bring things up in us, and that can cause conflict between us. So it asks that when we embark on this journey together, that we don't come to hate each other. And I think in modern language, that's speaking to things that we're triggered by. When we're around other people, sometimes our wounds get revealed. And then in that is a protective response. Those places where we're open and vulnerable, and that's our reactivity. It's a natural reaction to feeling some pain. And it comes up in our relationships, This is the beauty of relationship. It shows us all those places where we're hurting. And the yogi doesn't run away from that. It doesn't turn away from the pain, but inquires into the source of the pain. To go beyond the anger, that's our natural reaction, right? What's behind the anger? There's some pain there. What's the source of the pain? For a lot of us, this is the story of our childhood. So going into that, revealing it, it's like any wound, we have to expose it to air and light in order for it to heal. If we keep it wrapped up, it's just going to fester. It's never going to heal. So it's a delicate journey, and in that we recognize that, like the Buddha said, is we're all suffering. And I think the best response to recognizing that is to just be kind with each other, be gentle with each other. So if somebody gets triggered, to have compassion for them, understand that it's not about you. It's about something that was touched in them, and to just hold that space with lots of compassion, because we know that we're all wounded. We all have our triggers. So may there be peace. Om Shanti. So my teachers would always, we always just translate Shanti, it means peace, right? Well, my teachers would always say it's a little more nuanced than that. It actually means non-reactive. And so when we're not reactive, then there can be peace. If there's reactivity, it causes conflict in our relationships. So it's really, I think, an intention to look into our reactivity and look into the source of that reactivity, to understand where we've been hurt, and open that up, give that some space for healing. Yeah, okay. Any questions so far? Does that all land, make sense? Okay. It's not just me. Yeah, and this is good, to come together as groups and talk about these things, have some real talk about, why we're here practicing yoga and learning to be yoga teachers. It's really, I think everyone will probably share this, it's to alleviate some of the suffering in our own lives. I think that's what brings everyone to yoga in the first place. Desikachara, he said, thank God for my dukkha, thank God for my suffering, because it brought me to yoga, to this beautiful gift. This method, this approach in which we can, help ourselves heal. And then for me, it was really that, thank God I woke up to my own suffering, that I wasn't suppressing it anymore, drinking my troubles away as if they were going to go away, as if that was going to solve anything. It was just avoiding the pain that was there. So finally I was sick and tired of making myself sick and tired. And, there was this thing, yoga, that I'd done for years. And it was the one thing I knew helped me feel better. And so I decided, to look a little deeper into it and to really commit myself to it just a little more, going like a few times a week just to see what would happen. And, at first I felt worse. As my body started to release all the tension, protective armor that I'd been holding, it started to reveal all of the pain that had been there, that I'd been carrying around. So it felt like it was getting worse. I'd be lying in Shavasana and they'd be saying, just lie down and relax and fall into peace. I'd often start to have a panic attack, which I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about trauma. This is a long time ago when, people weren't talking about trauma like they are now. I just felt like I was going to die, like I wasn't getting enough air for some reason. It felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. It's like, my God, all those years of partying caught up to me. Am I having a heart attack here in a yoga room? And often I'd have to get up and leave. I'd have to go out and walk around the block, just deep breathing, try and regulate myself, And even that was instinctual. I didn't even understand anything about self-regulation and how the body holds on to trauma. And so I didn't understand anything of that process, But, I stuck with it. I was really curious. I really wanted to get to the bottom of it. I was sick of going on the way I had been. So I started to seek out teachers. And, when I met Mark Whitwell, it changed everything for me. It was just such a different approach to yoga than what I'd experienced previous. It was very simple, but there was a clear method underlying the simplicity, which gave it a lot of power. And I felt it immediately. And the first time I practiced with him wasn't even in person. I was researching Krishnamacharya because I'd been practicing Ashtanga Vinyasa, and I, flared my knees, from years of playing hockey and baseball and doing martial arts. My knees, really hurt, and this was just flaring up those old injuries. I was getting really frustrated trying to do all these, kind of extreme asanas. And I was like, God, I love the breathing and moving part, but the rest of it's kind of killing me. And then so, I talked to some teachers and they said, well, go to Iyengar yoga. Iyengar yoga is therapeutic. So I went to Iyengar school and they weren't breathing. They were just putting their bodies in all these shapes. And it was very kind of intellectual and rigid. It's like, God, this isn't what I love about yoga. Where's the moving and breathing? It all seems very heady. I found out that Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois had the same teacher. So how could these two wildly different approaches come from the same source? What's going on here? So I started to do some research into Krishnamacharya. And I found out the story about Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois. They both practiced with Krishnamacharya when they were very young. And they left him. They didn't stick around for a long time. And so they went off and they created their own systems based on what they learned when they were young men. And Iyengar was I think they were probably both very traumatized young men. And especially Iyengar. He was related through marriage to Krishnamacharya, and I don't think they really get along. I think it was these two very strong men, as we do, clashing. So Iyengar went off to Pune and started his own thing. But he even said at one point that, when he was older, he recognized Krishnamacharya's genius and wished that he had stuck around. He felt he really missed out on something there. But Krishnamacharya's son, Desikachar, he became a yoga teacher in his 30s. He started out as an engineer, many young Indian men of that generation. You know, he's like, you learn English, you become an engineer, you become a success. So that was the path that he was on, and he really didn't want anything to do with, you know, his father's business. Like many of us young men, it's like going the exact opposite direction of our fathers, you know. But at one point, he was at his family home, and there was a Western woman from New Zealand who came up in a taxi cab, got out of the cab, and Krishnamacharya used to hang out on their porch. And she ran up to him and threw her arms around him and said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. I haven't had a good night's sleep in years for the last night. Last night I had a beautiful sleep, thanks to you, thanks to this yoga that you've given me." Desikachar saw this. He was like completely blown away by it. He said, maybe there's something to this, you know. And so he became his father's student, and very dedicated student, devoted his life to learning from his father, and became a real bridge. Krishnamacharya never learned English, he never left India, so Desikachar really helped bring the fullness of Krishnamacharya's teachings to the world. And so I was doing this research, you know, finding out about these people. And I heard about this guy, Mark Whitwell, who'd studied with Desikachar for years. And, you know, Googling, who is this guy? What's going on? And I found this like online video of a workshop that was recorded. And, you know, in it, he talked about yoga. It really resonated with me the way he talked about it. And then he led them through a practice. And so I did the practice, you know, in my little yoga room with the computer there. At the end of it, you know, we finished the practice, very simple practice, like 20 minutes long. I was weeping. You know, felt like a homecoming. You know, felt like I found the thing I'd been searching for all those years. And so next time he came close, he was in Vancouver, I went to see him. We had an immediate connection. And that began this, you know, like 3-year apprenticeship where I'd go and teach with him and learn how to teach and help him out with his business and things like that. So those are my teachers. And